We all have things that come against us in life. People that don't like us. We're dealing with an illness. We lost a big client at work. It's easy to live worried, wondering how it's going to turn out. But David said in Psalm 27, in the time of trouble, God will hide you. He will place you out of reach on a high rock. It doesn't say we won't have trouble. Difficulties may come, but the promise God gives us is He's going to hide us. You could say He's going to make you invisible to the enemy. You don't know how many times trouble has come, but it couldn't find you. Sickness had your name on it, but when it showed up, you were invisible. That calamity, that accident was sent to take you out, but when it arrived, you were nowhere to be found. You didn't know anything about it. You were just going about your day, being your best, and forces that should have stopped you, enemies that should have defeated you, trouble that should have caused you great heartache didn't have any effect on you. Why? You were invisible to the enemy. That's why we can live from a place of faith, a place of trust, not worried. What if my company downsizes and doesn't need me? What if my child gets off course? What if I get this virus? No, turn it around. Father, thank you that I am invisible to the enemy. Thank you that my children are invisible to the enemy. Thank you that my health, my finances, my marriage, my dreams are all invisible to the enemy. David knew what it was like to have opposition and people trying to stop him. 1 Samuel 23, he was living on the run from King Saul. He had done nothing wrong. He was one of Saul's main armor bearers. He would play music for Saul when he wasn't feeling well. But Saul was jealous of David. He was so obsessed with getting rid of him, that's all he could think of. And sometimes when you're doing the right thing, being good to people, the favor on your life will stir up the jealousy in other people. And David was in the desert, hiding in caves, doing his best to not get caught. Saul had the most skilled soldiers. He had groups that were specifically trained in tracking people, like a Navy SEAL team. David was a shepherd. He'd been taking care of sheep, a teenager. He didn't have any professional training. He was outnumbered. They had more equipment, more skill. Seemed like he would be easily captured. Saul hunted David day after day, but God did not let him be found. God knows how to make you invisible to the enemy. He knows how to hide you from trouble, hide you from an accident, hide you from people that are trying to bring you down. A friend of mine was involved in a situation that was very big in the press. At one point, it was the hottest news story around, and practically every reporter was trying to get to him. But the press was very negative toward him, and he wanted to stay out of it. For the first few months, he had to travel back and forth to another city. The press would get word when he was going to be at the airport. They would all show up. He said, Joel, it was the most amazing thing. I would get out of my car. All these cameras were lined up on the sidewalk waiting for me. I would walk right past them. Not one of them recognized me. They never got a shot of him. One day, a reporter came to his house. He answered the door, but the reporter didn't even recognize him at his own house. He said, it was like God was making me invisible to the wrong people. God knows how to protect you. Just as He can make blind eyes see, He can make seeing eyes blind. He can make you invisible to people and circumstances that want to harm you. David said in Psalm 31, you have not handed me over to the enemy, but you have kept me in a safe place. We all have things trying to stop our destiny, but like with David, God has put you in a safe place. He's not going to let you be found. You may have difficulties now in your health, your finances, your marriage. You could live worried, panic, what am I going to do? But when you know you're in a safe place where God has you hidden, then you can live in peace. When trouble comes, you don't fall apart, give up on your dreams. You know God has made you invisible to the enemy. Saul was so frustrated, he went back home. Some of David's own men turned on David. They sent Saul the details of where David was hiding. They gave him the exact location, how to get there, what it looked like, all this inside information. Saul was thrilled. He had his men go do surveillance, study his movements, find out when David sleeps, when he eats, where he gets his food. He went overboard to make sure this time they would catch David. Saul and his men traveled a great distance. They arrived to where David was hiding. But just as Saul was about to attack, a messenger came riding up as fast as he could with an urgent message. It said, "Saul, hurry home. The Philistines are attacking our city." Saul and his men turned around and left. They never did capture David. God knows how to keep you in a safe place. Even when it looks like it's too late, He knows how to distract your enemies. He knows how to change people's plans, how to turn that trouble, turn the sickness, turn the opposition. I can imagine sickness coming looking for you. It has all the details, knows where you live, where you work. The enemy's done his surveillance. When that sickness comes to the door, you may answer, but like my friend, you're invisible to the enemy. It has to go back, "Sorry, I couldn't find them." When you know God has you in a safe place, invisible to the enemy, then you can live at peace. You're not at risk, open game. Any moment something bad can happen. God has you hidden where you cannot be found. Many things that were sent to stop you, trouble, calamity, bad breaks, they had your name on them. They had your address. The reason they couldn't stop you is they couldn't find you. God had you in a safe place. When you make the Lord your God, when you stay under the shelter of the Most High, the Scripture says He covers you with His wings. He'll hide you from things that could have brought you down. See, the enemy has schemes and strategies to try to keep you from your destiny. People were set in motion, headed your way to cause trouble. The problem was they couldn't find you. They showed up, but you were invisible to the trouble, invisible to the sickness, invisible to the layoff. God protected you and you didn't even know it. Well, Joel, it didn't work for me. I must not be invisible. I had an accident. I got laid off. I came down with this sickness. Yes, but that sickness couldn't finish you off. That accident couldn't take you out. That layoff didn't stop your purpose. When trouble came, God put you in a safe place. That difficulty is not how your story ends. God has the final say. He's not only going to take care of what's trying to stop you, but He's going to bring you out better. In the Old Testament, God sent plagues on Pharaoh and his people for not letting the Israelites go. The final plague was the firstborn of their children were going to be killed. God told the Israelites they had to put blood on the doorpost of their house. When the death angel came, as long as they had blood over their house, they were invisible to the enemy. There was no harm to their family. That night, thousands of lives were lost. There was all kinds of grieving, great sorrow. What's interesting is none of the Israelites lost their lives, yet they were living next door to their oppressors. It wasn't like they were hundreds of miles away. They were all in the same area. What was the difference? One had the blood and the other didn't. One was under the shelter of the Most High, covered by His wings. The other wasn't. When you keep the blood over your house, when you honor God, you stay close to Him, you have an advantage. He hides you when trouble comes. He makes you invisible to the enemy. When calamity showed up at your house, like with them, it passes you by. When people want to harm you, when sickness, when early death comes, that may have been sent for you. Schemes and strategies that have your name on them, stay in peace. You're covered by the blood. You're under the shelter of the Most High. Things that take other people out can't take you out. Trouble that defeats others won't stop you. Sickness that should be the end can't take your life. You're in a safe place. You don't have to live worried, fearing what might happen, fearing getting cancer, fearing being laid off. Joel, with this pandemic, I'm worried about my business. What if my finances go down? No, the good news is You have blood on your doorposts. You belong to the Most High. Now get in agreement with Him. Lord, thank you that my finances are invisible to the enemy. Thank you that my income, my business, my savings, my property are all in a safe place.